Week in, week out, you and I spend a lot of time testing cars together. So let's do something a bit different and go on a road trip. Yeah, let's take something fancy, but let's make this exercise a bit more challenging by taking something both gas and electric and attempting to beat the range and MPG estimates of both the manufacturer and the US government. Okay, so what exactly are we doing today? You see, I just got wrapped up with this business trip here to Nashville, Tennessee, technically just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in Franklin, Tennessee, at a fantastic new place called the South Hall Farm and Inn. It took 8 years to construct this place, but put that aside, the point is to take this from here to just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, specifically to a town called Belmont. The specific mileage that we have to go is 417. Now, as we leave here, we're at 385 miles of total range with the gas and electric. When I normally drive these things at home, what I do is I use the electric around town and I save the gas for the freeway. Now, why do I do that? Because the engine's running more efficiently when you're driving at highway speeds as opposed to stop and go traffic where you can use the electric torque. So our choices: do it like we'd normally use one of these things, EV in town, ICE on the freeway, or do we let the system work by itself? Rather than those, let's try a third choice, a hybrid of sorts. See what I did there? Let's drive an EV to the freeway, which I believe is about 10 miles. And then when we get to the freeway, let's go to hybrid mode. So not save, we're not trying to save the energy from when we get off the freeway, because the total range we have is 32 miles less than the distance we have to go. This is the point where you and I are going to switch to hybrid. And the system, it's telling us we have 250 plus MPG. So it's taking into account we've gone 10.7 miles basically on EV before we switched over into hybrid. So wow, did you ever think you'd get a Range Rover that gets 250 miles to the gallon? Something tells me that's going to change as we get closer to North Carolina. Then we get into, what are we doing here? What are the parameters? Are we driving this thing like a grandma, basically 60 miles an hour, no air conditioning compressor? No. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't need the air conditioning compressor, so far, haven't had to engage it. Now, speaking of driving, I am not doing all the driving here. This has one of these level 2 autonomous systems. If I'm honest, not one of the best ones out there. It works, it keeps you in the lane, but unlike the Mercedes system or the BMW system, it likes to bounce in between the center of the lane. So what it does is it'll go over here and then very abruptly push you back here. Granted, it's working here because of the crowned road, but if I were to go over, for example, let's go over here. And now we're kind of on the angle. The system's going to want to go over here. You see, it's already kind of, there's a magnetic pull to the center of the freeway, but it's pushing itself back. It's almost like a 13-year-old driving the car for the first time. Now, we've burned about 19 miles of our electric range, so we have 32 miles of electric range left, still in hybrid mode. Now, a huge point of order. Yeah, we're now down to 45.5 MPG. As a basis of comparison, a P400, so a mild hybrid, that's rated by the US government at 21 MPG, so whatever that's working for you in your calculus. You may be familiar with the term pilgrimage, but here in the US, we have different avenues towards a pilgrimage depending on the region of the country you're in. Like, for example, in California, you would want to make a pilgrimage to a theme park or the beach. But in the middle of the country, specifically the Southeast, there is no better pilgrimage than Buc-ee's. What is Buc-ee's? Buc-ee's is labeled as the largest convenience store in the world. Not a truck stop, a convenience store. But really, that is woefully inadequate. They have this like keystone of super clean restrooms, which is absolutely the truth. But then there's this convenience store that is, well, let me put it to you this way. You speak to the people here in this one outside of Nashville, Tennessee. This one, they call it the small store. It's only 53,000 square feet. And there's another one they're opening that will have 74,000 square feet. Even the food is good here. Like the brisket sandwich, it is so good that my road wife and I, in one of these programs where they take us to one of these fancy restaurants from the car manufacturer, we ditched the fancy restaurant and came here for the brisket sandwich. It's that good. No matter what you feel about Americana, this is one of these places you got to experience at least once in your lifetime. I finally get to meet the man, Buc-ee. You got a great place here. Thanks for having me. I tried your soda for the first time today. Now, as we depart the religious experience that is Buc-ee's, our MPG has definitely fallen. It's got down to 36.6. Still very respectable for a Range Rover. Now, something fascinating I'm noticing that you and I are learning together, and the only way we're going to learn this kind of stuff is doing these long distance kind of drives. The electric range, it's not burning through the entire electric range and then running on gas. The system gets to about half level, and it tries to maintain between 1/4 and 1/2 of electric. And if I'm taking a stab in the dark, the system is designed to do what we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Either way, we're not done yet, and this is indeed a road trip, so let's play a little game. Press pause on the episode, and in the comments below, take a guess whether we're going to be able to flip that delta. Basically, the deficit we got right now, which is down to just 8 miles. Are we going to be able to go into the positive and not have to gas up before we get to our destination? Don't cheat. Welcome to North Carolina, the only state line we are crossing on this entire trip. North Carolina, for those of you who don't know, it is the site of the first man-powered flight in the world over 100 years ago. Now back to our journey here. We're making some headway, and I have some good news to report. That cushion that swung into the positive of 12 miles just 100 miles ago is now up to 37 miles. The bad news, our MPG, it's kind of gone that way. 26.8. Yes, that is entirely disappointing, but it's still more than the average of what the US calls for the regular Range Rover. The real question we have to focus on, will that delta or that cushion grow, or are we going to eat into it because we have to go through the hills of Asheville? So as we meander through the hills here and get closer to Asheville, a couple of points we have to bring back up here that we learned over on the Range Rover Sport episode. That battery size, 38.2 kilowatt hours. The charge time, not the fastest thing out there, but not the slowest thing out there. Max charging on DC at 50 kilowatts, very similar to the Mercedes GLE 450e plug-in. So it will charge in 4 to 5 hours on a fast charger, but then you get into like the regular thing at home. That on the Range Rover Sport, back in California, that took me something like 7.5 hours. I'm thinking this would be about the same. Now, speaking of the charge, we have 150 miles to go, and the system has not allowed the state of charge to stay in that like quarter to mid-range. Now it is literally down to 0. So we are 100% in MPG. No E assistance, no nothing. We are driving just a regular P400 Range Rover at this point. Now to the finish line. Welcome to beautiful Belmont, North Carolina. For those of you who know the area, this is Gaston County. This is to the west of Charlotte, and believe it or not, Charlotte Douglas International Airport is just on the other side of that lake. This is one of these beautiful little enclaves, one of the last pieces to grow inside of this incredibly fast-growing town. That aside, what did we learn today? I rolled into this driveway here with 76 miles of range remaining. That's just gas. There's nothing on the electric. So what does that mean in terms of MPG? Our total was 29.6, but we really have to frame this against the regular mild hybrid P400. Same engine, just no plug-in hybrid. The US government calls it for 500 miles of range in that vehicle. What gives? Because we got just under 500 miles of range if I go out and drive this thing on the freeway right now. Well, the difference, the gas tank is significantly smaller here. It is 5 gallons smaller. So that's really the advantage of this whole packaging of a plug-in hybrid with a 38.6 kilowatt hour battery plus a smaller gas tank. We're able to improve our overall range. Now, there's another catch I have not shared with you. You can't buy this car anymore. This is a 2023 model. It's been hiding in the Atlanta fleet. The 2024, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, is now a more powerful model. It has almost 100 total system horsepower more. So they're trying to position that as more of a performance vehicle. Then this is more efficient. That one is significantly more expensive than this one. And this one we didn't share. We didn't go through a whole options game. It has practically every option, including the executive seats in the back. Now, putting aside all the efficiency in the game we played here, as a road trip car, I hate to admit it, this thing was badass. But I am rambling at this point. Is anyone surprised that this would be the proper tool for a road trip? I don't think so. Then we have to press on to a spot of challenging news. So the friend I am visiting here, he doesn't have a level 2 charger, so I have plugged this in on a level 1, and that has taken 25 hours to charge 38.6 kilowatts. So there's that. That brings us to the wish list. And here, this is more open to all car manufacturers, not just Land Rover and Range Rover. We've proven this works. Plug-in hybrids, they work in today's infrastructure. Let's do more of this with larger batteries in vehicles that have price elasticity where people can do this kind of stuff. Drive them around towns like Charlotte or Los Angeles, like we did with the Range Rover Sport, as a full electric vehicle where there is an infrastructure. And then while everybody's arguing about infrastructure, grid, mineral rights, we have tools like this. But I am just one man. This is the point of the episode. I'll turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all word. MotoManTV on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And with that, if you got value out of this episode, may I suggest another one? Living with a car, but not something fancy, rather something so much more fun. Living with a 300 horsepower, 3-cylinder engine. You know what the car is. Click on this link to check out that episode. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später. Oh, someone's getting pulled over. Unmarked car. Wow, a Durango 4 getting pulled over right in front of the Nissan headquarters in Franklin. I think it was a HOV violation because she wasn't speeding. Anyway, don't jump in the HOV lane if you don't have an HOV.